Well, we can always end up editing out the beginning and the end.
Yeah, we'll
because
find a
that's
good
pretty
start
easy.
Okay, fake laugh in 3, 2.
So, 2 weeks and 1 day postpartum.
2 weeks and 1 day.
We intended to do this like 1 day postpartum
Yeah.
for posterity, for Knox, and for anybody who's interested in finding out what the heck happened in our birth story. But life with 3 kids and 3 dogs and
And the holidays and everything like that.
and still, having to take care of ourselves and stuff.
Right.
Here we are. So, guess we'll kind of start with right around 29 weeks. 29 weeks. I started having organized Braxton Hicks contractions. So, went on bed rest at that point, in the sense that I stopped working out completely. And really started hoping he wouldn't come early.
That was the whole thing, is we were fully prepared for him to be premature, or that our birth plan would be interrupted not by anything else other than him coming prior to 37 weeks, was sort of our initial feeling towards the pregnancy based on what was happening.
Yeah, because I had a ton of pressure, pelvic pressure, like couldn't squat without feeling pressure, and had really pretty organized contractions. Like we had one set that lasted over 4 hours and got to 90 seconds apart and were over a minute, long before 37 weeks.
Yeah.
So we were kind of on the lookout for an early baby, and then we got to 37, and my dad was going to leave for South Africa at like 37 plus 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
So we did some like natural induction attempts, like acupuncture or eating spicy food and that type of stuff. And Knoxman was just pretty happy with.
And once we got to
Staying
37
in the
weeks, he was
tummy.
pretty set. He got comfy in there.
Yeah, like my contractions almost completely stopped after 37 weeks. And then we'd have like random 4 to 6 hour spurts of contractions. So I think we had 2 false alarms.
Yeah.
Before I actually went into labor. And just like fortunately productive contractions, because I would have been really frustrated if all of that was still purely Braxton Hicks. But then I finally went into labor on Sunday
night at about 11:30 p.m.
But Sunday at church I started having organized contractions again for the first time, and that was 39 plus 6.
Yes. Well, Sunday was 39 plus 5.
39 plus 5.
Yeah.
Started having organized contractions again at church, and they didn't really go away. So we called the midwives, and they came over around 8 p.m., at which point the contractions died down. And so we sent them home and decided to take a nap / try to sleep. Which all the times that had happened previously, the contractions just went away. It wouldn't come back for like 24 plus hours.
Yeah.
And then around 11 we woke up and they were still there. So that's when we called the midwives over again. What time do you think they actually got over? Around 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, around 1 a.m. they came over.
As we got up, we baked a fresh bread.
Yep. Because that's what you do when you're in labor.
We just kind of hung out downstairs.
And kind of rode the waves at that point. Contractions never really got closer consistently than 5 minutes apart.
Yeah.
They just kind of steadily got more intense. And then we took another nap in the morning.
We did.
Which was like
It wasn't
5 minutes of napping, and then
really
like a minute of me yelling, and then 5 minutes of napping. Finally got to transition. Thought I was complete. I was not.
And also, on the advice of the midwife, we thought that we were complete.
Right.
And for those of you who don't know what complete
is 10 centimeters dilated, which is when you can start to push. But I apparently was around 8, which we found out after I'd been attempting to push for 2 hours. And I was really, really tired.
Yeah.
And really upset and really did not want to be there anymore.
There was a lot of proclamations of
like, you give me a C-section, cut this baby out of me.
We wanted to go to the hospital. We never wanted to do anything like this ever again.
Yeah. Still feel that way.
Yeah, could still feel that way. But then your mom came back.
Yeah, and then Oma came back with Ava, who had just had lunch with Adara at her school because Ava has the day off, and then put Ava down for a nap. And that was around, 10?
Yeah.
Around 10. And so Knox ended up being born at 11:50, and Ava slept through transition and slept through delivery, which is really pretty incredible.
Very impressive.
Like, high five to Ava for not waking up for any of that, because it would probably have been somewhat traumatic for her.
Very impressive napping.
So she naps, and then Oma comes and holds my hand and basically doulas me through the rest of labor and delivery. Mostly in Afrikaans, which I think kind of upset Greg.
Much to my dismay.
And so one of the things that was really helpful was Greg pushing on my back to help my hip joint open. And so he eventually just gets into the tub.
In the tub. Fully in the business end of this situation.
With all of his clothes on, because every time I had a contraction, I would, in my recollection, nicely ask him, but in his recollection, probably yell at him.
It was not nicely.
To push on my back. So we labored in the tub, finally got... How we ended up getting through transition was Oma and Greg were just like, we'll just let the contractions do their thing. Don't try to help him along. Don't try to work. Just try and kind of catch your breath. And I did that for how long?
An hour.
About an hour.
Yeah.
And then I got the urge to push after about an hour, and I didn't consult anybody. I was like, I'm just going to do it. And I told them that I pushed after the first pushing contraction. We had 3 total. And
again, still 5 minutes apart.
Yeah, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But grateful for that. Goodness, it was really uncomfortable.
Yeah, it seemed like it.
But the contractions were really long.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I had my first pushing contraction, pushed his head out on the second.
Yeah, so he crowned basically and then sat there.
At the first.
Yeah.
Finished pushing his head out on the second. I tore on the second and I felt it. And I told everybody I just tore. And then pushed him all the way out on the third.
Yep.
My water had broken partially when I went into labor. But I guess he had 2 bags because he was, as he was coming out, his face was still in the bag. And that was pretty cool because the midwife told us to check his face. And so, Greg went to check his face and I was also doing that. And Greg was like, this doesn't feel like a face.
Yeah, because I was feeling her fingers on Knox's face and I thought, well, that can't be right.
Yeah, so he thought we had birthed a predator for a moment.
Something like that.
But it feels really weird because it actually feels kind of like a saturated plastic bag.
Yeah, slipperiest damn thing you've ever felt.
Next to the baby.
Right.
But so finally he was delivered. He had his cord wrapped a couple times. Midwife basically told us to get our heads out of our butts because we were just standing there and we were like, what do we do now? And so we pulled the cord off of around him. He was born with a ton of vernix, so he looked super gray because he was just covered in the... Vernix is white and kind of slippery and pasty looking.
And he was very quiet.
He was very quiet.
Calm, which was sort of alarming at first because he just wasn't making any noise at all.
Yeah, I think I asked if he was breathing.
Yeah. And
he was.
The midwife kind of rubbed his chest a little bit and he didn't like that much and he started to cry. But again, not wail, but just sort of cry a little
just kind of squeak. And so we got to do the whole pulling him up, laying him on my chest, let the cord stop pulsating. Greg got to cut the cord. Which was cool. And then in California, you have 2 hours to deliver the placenta. In Texas, you only have 1. So as soon as the cord was cut and he was being checked out, I kind of pulled it free because I didn't want to waste any time.
And this was an impressive thing to watch, by the way.
We won't describe it in too much detail for anybody who's a little squeamish. But my mom and her recollection of it, she's like, it looked like you just pulled that thing straight out.
It honestly looked like she just reached in there and just pulled it out, like picking apples out of a supermarket basket or something.
But the cord was really cool. It was like
It was
this
super
thick.
thick.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like you could bungee jump with that.
Yeah. Any birth thing that you see in the movies is like, it destroys everything you think about what a newborn looks like, because honestly, when he was born, he looked a bit like Gollum, but super cute now. Just, it's very goopy. Like,
There's a lot of goo.
there's a lot of goo.
There's a lot of stuff that happens too. I unfortunately did poop multiple times during
Multiple times.
labor, which I really had
Lots
hoped
of
not
poop.
to do. But nothing brings you closer than cleaning up your wife's poop while
Yeah.
she's delivering
Like, I
your
thought there
baby.
would be a little poop, but this was way more
There was
than
a
anticipated.
lot of poop. So all of that, all things considered, the actual labor and delivery went really well.
Yep.
He was born 9 out of 10 on APGAR. He pinked up really, really quickly.
Yeah.
He didn't scream or yell or cry
Didn't seem
much.
like he was never in distress at all.
No, he was, and even during all of his checks, he had
Yeah.
no
His
D
heart rate,
cells.
yeah, and his heart rate was really strong for the duration of labor and delivery. So
and postpartum. He's
Yeah.
doing great. And then they told me to get out of the tub. So at this point, I'm really tired. I've just delivered the placenta. I'm tired. We were in labor for
12 hours.
12 hours,
yeah.
if you count when active labor started.
Yeah.
And a lot longer if you don't. So I'm super tired, and they're like, okay, get out of the tub. And I was a little upset about that because the tub is pretty comfortable. They keep the water nice and warm.
And at this stage, the water in the tub is like black with lots of floating goo.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty
that's
yucky.
what it looks like.
And so I asked why I have to get out of the tub, and the midwives are like, well, it's because we can't tell how much blood you've lost if you're still in the water. So I'm like, okay, that's fair. So then I get out of the tub. They give me these giant, it's sort of like an open-faced sandwich version of a diaper.
It's like a puppy, like
a puppy pad.
Puppy pad, yeah.
And I go walk around with that, and then I go sit down. We get Knox to latch and nurse, and he did really great at that right away. They do some palpation on my uterus and all that normal stuff. And then about, 20-30 minutes later, I'm like, I want to go take a shower.
Well, before that, I'm really talking about how Cam's bleeding seems like a lot to me. And I'm not a child labor, I'm not an OB, I don't know, I've never seen a birth before. And basically, the midwife was saying what she looked at in the tub and what she was looking at coming off of Cam now, it did appear to be a little bit more than normal, but not something that we should be alarmed about. But I am already
Kind of on the high end of normal
sort
is
of-
how she described it.
Right. And so I'm pretty nervous already. And then I've asked the midwife dozens of times if this amount of blood loss is normal. Is this normal? I don't think this is normal. And then Cam wants to go up and take a shower.
Because I'm weird.
And so I go up with her. She's taking a shower. I'm standing there. And at this stage, I'm really freaked out because it's just a lot of blood. I feel like it's a lot of blood. And nobody seems all that concerned about it.
And at this point, I still feel really good.
Yeah, and Cam's
Like,
saying she feels good having just delivered a
having
baby.
a great shower. I
And-
feel much less yucky.
And so she
Knox is being taken care of.
So she just puts a towel on, and then we go back downstairs. She wants some food, so I make a sandwich for her, and then she is eating.
It was a good sandwich.
She's eating, and she's holding Knox because Knox has just been eating on and off at this stage. And then I come back into the room, and at this stage, one of Cam's friends is actually there too. So it's a whole bunch of people are over at this time.
Yeah, was your mom there?
Yeah, and my
Yeah,
mom
so
was still
Susu's there, Alma's there, the midwives are there.
Laura's
there.
because she's just delivered some furniture for us.
Yeah.
And so Cam is like not sort of in a
And I'm sitting down on a chair at this
Yeah.
point, wrapped up in a towel,
With
holding
Knox.
Knox and eating a sandwich.
and so she doesn't seem to be distressed about it, but she just tells me, hey, I need you to take the baby, right? And so I figure she's tired, she wants to readjust, she wants to go sit somewhere more comfortable, or she just doesn't want to have to hold on to the baby and also eat at the same time.
And so at this point, I'm starting to get a little lightheaded, which is what the midwives and my mom said to like look out for. They're like, if you get lightheaded, then that's a sign that we're starting to lose too much blood. And so, in my recollection, I asked Greg to take the baby, and then in my recollection, he's not moving fast enough. So what I think I said after that was, somebody needs to take this baby. Apparently, we never got to that.
No, we never got to that. She said, take him. So I go over, and she's wrapped in a towel, and she's got Knox kind of in the front. And so I don't know if she wants me to take the whole towel or just the baby. I ended up just taking just the baby, and she keeps the towel. And as
Not for long.
as I turn away with Knox, I see Cam just fully collapse, face first, out of the chair onto the ground. Luckily, it's carpeted there. We have a carpet down. But she hits the ground, and you know that she's just out. She didn't fall. She just is completely blacked out from blood loss. So at that stage,
as part of my thinking that somebody needs to take this baby, I've been thinking, like, I'm a little lightheaded. I just need to lay down, and then I'll tell everybody, hey, I'm not feeling so good anymore. And of course, that never comes out either. I just face plant. I hit my head right here. You can't see the bruise anymore because it's been 2 weeks. Laura, during my epic fall from grace, reaches out to try and catch me, but doesn't quite make it before my head hits the ground.
No.
And neither apparently does the towel, so apparently I'm just in her arms.
Naked.
Butt naked.
Bleeding. And so at this stage, I'm yelling at my mom to call 911 because I'm done at this phase. We're going to the hospital one way or the other. I don't care what anybody says or if anyone protests. It's like, we're going to the hospital. We need to get an ambulance here. She's passed out. I don't know if she's going to regain consciousness, but
how long was it out for?
Not very long. It was like a typical faint. Like, you fainted, and as soon as you were prone, you got enough oxygenated blood back to your brain where you could function, right? And so the midwife is insisting that Cam just needs to go pee to get pressure off her uterus so she'll stop bleeding. And then
so finally, I did try pee, but that was an unsuccessful endeavor.
Yeah, and so finally the midwife is like, okay, we're going to go to the hospital. And so we load up into my mom's Suburban.
I'm at this point.
At this point, I go upstairs and get Cam some clothes.
I've been dressed in Greg's shorts and
a t-shirt. Yeah, and so we go up. I get her dressed. We basically half carry, half walk her out to my mom's car. We get in the back with her, and then the midwife also at this stage is like, oh, Donna is just gonna bring me my sweater and my scarf.
At which
my
point
response
Greg
was like,
loses it.
I literally lost it. I was like hell she is. We're going to the hospital. You're not getting your effing scarf from the other midwife. What are you even talking about? And
the whole time I'm just like, so chill.
Cam's like, it's fine. I'm fine. I just need vitamin K. Like, they're just gonna give me a little vitamin K. I'm gonna clot right up, and it's gonna be fine. And I was like, no, that's not how this is gonna go. And then when you have a home birth, you're supposed to tell the midwife ahead of time what hospital will you be going to in the event of emergency, and we had. They did not have that information ready. So now she's like trying to talk to her phone and have her phone tell her where the nearest emergency room is. And again, my patience with anybody at this stage is like 0. And so I'm like, this is so effing simple. Just type it into your phone. So we type it into the phone, we call the emergency room, we tell them that we're on the way, and then we go there. My mom drives like mostly safely, but also a little bit not because we're in a hurry. And we get to the emergency room, and well, first off, the hospital is really hard to find the emergency room entrance. We finally find it.
Which is really weird. You would think they would make that easier.
Yeah, kind of bizarre. And we have a blood pressure cuff on Cam this whole time, and luckily her blood pressure is doing okay. And it's like a pretty, the validity of the results coming through this particular blood pressure cuff, I have no confidence in, because it's something that's been provided by the midwife, and it has been given.
But it turned out that my blood pressure was good all the way until surgery.
Yeah. And so we get into the ER. We get her like booked in, and we go into one of those back rooms, and it feels like there's 50 people milling around, and then I'm just standing there, and nothing's really happening. They can't find the proper.
Well, they got me. So to backtrack a little bit, we get there. They get me into a wheelchair. They wheel me up, and at this point, like, this is the first point now I'm sitting up. When I was laying down, I was feeling okay. And I'm sitting up, I'm like, I'm feeling really lightheaded again. So I was hoping I would be seen quickly, and I was. It was like they got my name and somebody was there for me pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
So kudos to the staff for being really good about that. We did get back to triage fast.
Yeah.
And then they got me in a gown, gave Greg all of my stuff. And then people start coming in and doing like visual and tactile tests on me. Some of which were pretty aggressive and uncomfortable.
Yeah. And so this whole time, and with every other place that she had been, when Cam is sitting somewhere, wherever she's been sitting is literally just is like pooling up with blood. It's not like a little bit of blood. It's like she sits there and it's like whatever's underneath her, it's soaking in blood. So she's sitting there and blood is still running basically onto the hospital bed and on everything. And when people check her, their hands are covered in blood. So it's like there's a ton of blood coming out of her body. And
so they actually stopped triage at that point. So when the doctor came in and palpated my uterus with the amount of blood that I was bleeding, they stopped doing triage and said, we're going to an OR.
Yeah. So Dr. Rodriguez comes in. He says, we need to get to an OR right now. And so they're going, and Kim, to her credit, is trying to be very lighthearted about all of this. And
she's lighthearted. I was trying to be polite and not
and very
panicky.
Positive.
Yeah.
And Dr. Rodriguez is being very straightforward. He's like, I don't know how much blood you've lost, really. I don't really know the source of the bleeding yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's your uterus that's hemorrhaging. And he's like, and if that's the case, we may have to do a hysterectomy. And if that's the case, he's like, and from this amount of blood, people die from this. Like, this is what he, I feel like, said dozens of times, was the real danger
is the blood loss.
Of losing blood. And then he said there's a point of no return with blood loss where there's not a whole lot they can do. They can transfuse blood if they have to.
And to press pause real quick, because you might be like, well, where's the baby? So my mom, thank goodness, is a medical professional, and she stayed home. And I don't remember who had the wherewithal to call Trisha and ask her for milk, but somebody did. And I had only known that Trisha had stored milk because she had told me about it like 2 weeks prior, which was such a blessing, because then she came over to the house where my mom was, immediately brought about 30 ounces of milk, and Knox was fed while all of this was going on. Because how long were we apart before he got brought to us?
Like 6 hours.
Yeah, which is a long time for a newborn to go without eating anything.
Yeah.
So that was really just incredible of her, and knowing that he was taken care of, because he was with my mom and he was being fed, because we were pretty adamant that we didn't want him to have any formula.
Yeah.
So that was really, really cool of her to have taken care of that.
Yeah, so we got extremely lucky in a lot of places, but that was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
But fast forward back to Dr. Rodriguez has come in. He's telling us this is a lot of blood. The midwife, and this is one of my, like, if I'm going to be critical of the situation, this is one of the spots where I would be most critical if they ask us for like a post-game review, is when I asked the midwife initially, is this amount of blood loss from Cam normal? She said, by my estimates, by looking at the tub. Now, mind you, they asked her to get out of the tub a long time ago. She said, my estimates, by looking about the amount of blood in the tub, she's lost about 1,500 cc's of blood, which is a substantial
1.5
amount.
liters.
When you're pregnant, though, your blood volume does go up, which is why you're not in a dire circumstance if you've lost 1,500 cc's as a pregnant person. But that's still a lot of blood. The midwife at this stage is still telling the doctors she estimates Cam has lost about 15 cc's of blood. But there's no way...
1,500.
Oh yeah, 1,500 cc's of blood. But there's no way those could possibly be the same, because she's been bleeding, as we've been talking about,
for another hour at this point.
And so Dr. Rodriguez is again telling us this is dangerous, we're going to an operating room right now. And so at this stage, you're, as the spouse, you're just kind of standing there, and I get to walk with her up to the OR because they start to wheel her there. And again, Cam, being spirited, is talking to Dr. Rodriguez. I don't know if the blood loss was going to her head at this point.
I was very lucid. I remember all of this.
But she's like, I just want to thank you for taking such great care of me. And Dr. Rodriguez, I kid you not, goes, don't thank us until we're done.
No,
Here.
he said, don't thank me unless you make it out the other side.
Or something to
like
that
it wasn't
effect.
like thank me afterwards.
Yeah.
It was like, don't thank me unless you survive.
Yeah,
was
something like that.
Essentially what he said.
So he said that, and then about what felt like 2 minutes later, we get to a divergent path where Cam is going to go to the right, and I just get to go to the waiting room to the left. And that's it. Like, that's it. You don't, as the spouse, you're carrying all of her crap. You have her blood on you. You've been watching this the whole time. You have a surgeon who's just told you several times she could die, because we don't know, but this is a lot of blood and she could die. And then they're basically like, okay, bye. Like,
Yeah.
we have to go. You have to go. And so then I was just in the waiting room after that.
So how long were you waiting for? I know you said you don't know, but if you had to give a good estimate.
It was a little bit less than an hour
Okay.
before Dr. Rodriguez came back out.
So Dr. Rodriguez at this point disappears too, and I'm assuming to scrub in. I get wheeled into an OR, which is nothing like the movies. It's like a really small room. There are a whole bunch of people there just kind of ragdolling me around. My anesthesiologist was South African, so right before I got put under, I got to chat with him in Afrikaans, which was really cool because it really helped me calm down a bit.
Yeah.
Because there's just something else to focus on. As we're going back and on the walk, like the staff really made it clear that I might not make it, but I had a sense the entire time like I'm going to make it on the other side. That being said, I prayed a hang of a lot. Prayed that I would get to raise my kids, prayed that I would get to make it out. And my last words I said before surgery, I think I just said I love you and I'll see you later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a weird experience, knowing that those might be your last words and trying to choose them, because you don't have time. It's not like you can be like, let me decide how eloquent I'm going to be so this can be quaffed at my funeral, you know?
No, and so it's just like, I could not sit in the waiting room. I just paced up and down this hallway, just like sobbing basically the entire time.
Your mom came and met you up there, right?
Yeah. So but the weird part was the midwife was there. She looks panicked because this is her patient who now, we've been told several times at this stage, could die.
Right.
I'm pacing and sobbing. And then this very, very sweet, hefty lady came up to me and just started hugging me, like in the waiting room. She was just like, it's going to be okay. It's in God's hands now. It's going to be fine. You know, because I think people are getting stressed out watching how stressed out I am. And this lady is like hugging me, telling me, and I've never met this lady. I don't know her name, but that was very nice. And so eventually I just slumped down against the wall in the hallway, which you're not supposed to do in a hospital. You're not supposed to sit in the hallways, but I was like, I cannot sit in the waiting room. And when a surgeon comes out, like there's this like space of time between you see the surgeon, but
and
they
you wonder who
told
they're
you
there
the result
for,
yet, you know? And so he comes out and he's like, she did lose a lot of blood. She's going to be fine. She'll be in recovery here in about, for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll get her into a room.
So he had told me what they were going to do as we were headed up, and so they said they were going to do an exploratory surgery under anesthesia is what they called it, under general. So I was completely out.
Yeah.
And they said that they were going to try and find the source of the bleeding, that hopefully it was a laceration, which it ended up being.
Yeah.
And that if it was a laceration, that was kind of the lowest risk situation, the easiest, quickest thing to deal with. And that if it was my uterus hemorrhaging, that was a lot harder to fix. And if they couldn't fix it, then I'd get a hysterectomy, like we talked about earlier. So it ended up being a laceration in my perineum, which was a 2nd degree. So if you don't want to hear this part, skip ahead.
Yeah.
But so I tore with Adara 1st degree, which is just like a flesh wound, skin tear, no big deal. 2nd degree is when you tear into your perineum, and 3rd degree is when you tear all the way through your anal sphincter. And my 2nd degree tear was about 1 centimeter from being a 3rd.
Yeah, it was big.
It was huge. Of course, none of us are aware of this going into the hospital.
No. And so after the fact, because Cam's mom is a medical professional, apparently a woman's perineum, and it might be the same for a man, is supposed to be what they call an arterial area.
Avascular.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Anyway, avascular area, which
Yeah.
basically is saying there shouldn't be arteries running through this area of her body.
Right. So this part, your perineum is where if you were to get an episiotomy, which is where they cut you to help the baby come out, you should bleed minimally. It's like getting a paper cut on your hand. You should
Yeah.
have about that much blood loss. My body is just different, and I have a major artery running through there.
And as they described it, it's just attributable to bad luck.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. It's just bad luck.
And
You know?
we would never, if I had never tore, we would have never known it was there.
No.
Because that's not standard care to find that out, because it happens, I guess, in about 1% of cases.
Yeah, because my dad, like, his way of dealing with very stressful situations is he's immediately gathering as much information on it as possible.
Yeah.
So he's texting us and saying apparently this happens in something like between 1 and 5% of pregnancies,
Yeah.
which is a minuscule number, right,
Yeah.
of these events. And to be fair to the hospital staff, they may not have seen one ever for some of those people.
Yeah, because they definitely seemed like they thought it was a uterine hemorrhage.
Yeah.
Like, that's much more common than what happened to me. So I just kind of got unlucky with the fact that our kid has an enormous head.
Yeah.
And almost tore me a new one.
Yeah, so Dr. Rodriguez says she's going to be okay, but they don't immediately tell me that I can go see her in recovery. And so I'm just waiting, and then finally I go to like this nurse's desk, and I still look like a wreck. And like there's some older lady following me around crying. Find out it's just me, but the whole time. And so I finally go up to this nurse's station. It's this young female nurse, and she sees me and is immediately like, I need to help this person. And so they're like, hey, I have Kamson Ashcroft's husband up here. He hasn't seen her. Can we please take him back to recovery so that he can see her? And at this stage, you were
I was still out.
you were still out, but you were apparently sequestered enough wherever you were that visitors could come back there. And so again, you walk back there, and I don't know what to expect, but she's laying in a hospital bed. She's got all these wires coming out of her. She's got an oxygen mask on, and it's just terrible. Like, it's terrifying to see somebody like that, because it's just like all these people have told me that you could die, and now it looks like you are.
I looked like something out of Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah,
in the,
it's just like
ICU ward.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing, and
When I woke up, I didn't wake up slowly. I woke up like, I mean, I'm sure I seemed groggy, but
Yeah.
mentally I didn't feel groggy waking up. They gave me a lot of meds.
there was fentanyl.
Yeah,
and
fentanyl, which I don't know if I would have consented to that if I, had time to sign consent forms, because that's some pretty strong stuff. But came to, Greg was there, Susu was there.
Yeah, so they let me back, and Cam was sleeping for a while I was there, and then they let my mom come back, and Cam was awake by the time that she got there. And talking with her, Cam's basically asking, like, what's going to happen? What are we doing? And so I was like, they're getting a room ready for us. They have to do a few more things here,
Yeah.
and then they're going to put us in a room. And then Cam would ask, okay, what are we doing? And I would tell her again. And then she would ask, where is my baby? I just want to see my baby. And I said, not Oma has Knox, and as soon as we have a room, we're going to come up here. And she'd say, okay. And then she'd go a while, and she'd say, where's my baby? I want to see.
I might have been a little
I
high.
want to see my baby. Where's my baby? And then I would tell her again. But she's still coming out of the anesthesia at this point.
Yeah.
And then we hit a point of like full lucidity where she was cold and she wanted a blanket, and then she was hot, so she didn't want the blanket. And then
So basically completely normal at that point.
yeah, and so that's normal. And then we're there for a while, and there's some like administrative stuff that's going on at the hospital. Like, they needed to get some more blood draws, and her veins are totally like flat at this stage.
Completely flat.
So they're having a hard time getting blood.
Yeah,
And
so
then-
they ended up not transfusing any blood, which I thought
Which was
was
good.
interesting.
Yeah.
My mom's estimate, she thinks I lost about 3 liters, which to us meant nothing. We actually, about a week after,
Started Googling some of this stuff.
were like, oh, well, let's see how much blood loss is normal. And so we got lucky in a couple places. One of them is that in the summertime, we did our testing for the annual physical for insurance, and we found out that my protein that was really low. So I ended up changing my diet to make sure to eat a lot of protein and a lot of iron, which totally helped my blood volume. We don't know what my total blood volume was, but most adults walk around with about 5 liters, and if you lose more than 40%, you die. So I don't know what it was, but we came pretty close to the 40% margin.
And the scary part about blood loss, which is what Dr. Rodriguez was trying to tell us, is they call it like this point in your body where if you get so low, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, you can pump more in, but you're just going to die
like
anyway.
Your body won't take, basically.
Yeah.
It can't oxygenate. And that's Cam's brother is a paramedic, and he was telling me the same thing. It's just like once a patient's hemoglobin gets super low, it's like if you don't have oxygenated blood going to your major organs, it doesn't take long for very significant damage and death to happen. It's because it doesn't matter about the total volume of blood at this stage. There's specific items within your blood that are very important, and if you can't oxygenate enough blood rapidly enough, you first black out, which she did, and then organs you go into organ failure. And all of this is, again, us gathering information after the fact, but it was a very real threat at the time.
Right.
We were both lucky.
Which we were fortunately completely unaware of.
Yeah.
When my mom told my brother what was happening, he's a firefighter and paramedic, he took the day off and came down because he thought I wasn't going to make it.
Yeah.
So, like, that's, in retrospect, that's really scary.
Yeah. And I'm not communicating with Sunshine, her brother, at this stage.
Yeah, just Elmo was.
I only communicated after the fact, and he made it clear, like, well, when her mom called him, he immediately took the day off, burst into tears, because he thought we're coming down to basically see a dead body.
Yeah, and he was coming out to help,
like, with
carry the burden of grief, basically.
Yeah, like help with all of the stuff that would come with losing a loved one.
Yeah.
He was under that impression on his drive down. So, but I didn't know.
Fortunately, by the time we got there, I was awake, and so after the surgery, the risks were just. They said I was basically like normal postpartum at that point.
Primary risk was just infection at that stage.
Yeah, and so they kept us overnight.
Yep.
Knox got to come to the room,
which was super nice.
Which was great. So I had to pump and dump one session to clear the fentanyl, and then he got to nurse normally after that. He got plenty because he was back to birth weight within a week, and he's a pound over birth weight now. 2 weeks out, so that's been going really well. The first, but so what I can say, because I've had a completely unmedicated birth twice, but then had a medicated postpartum now, and wow, it's different.
But after the surgery, the hospital was basically saying, these are all your options for pain management, and Cam was like, no way, I am not taking any of that.
I took
she took in
like an Aleve or something. Yeah, Motrin and Tylenol.
Like something like that. Like really milk toast, pain, like stuff that you could take if you have a boo-boo,
Yeah, because at that point I was on a lot of Pitocin because they wanted my uterus to contract and get small as fast as possible. So I was still having contractions postpartum.
Yeah.
And that's what really hurt, because they had done a DNC in the operation where they like scrape your uterus, so it was already uncomfortable, and then continuing to have like labor level contractions after that was really, really painful. And then I was nursing him, which also stimulates contractions. So I took pain meds for maybe 12 hours.
Yeah.
And I think I took them once at home just to kind of take the edge off of it. But they offered me some prescription drugs, and I was like, nope, don't want to have to deal with not being able to nurse and all of the stuff that comes with prescription drugs. So that was that was pretty cool. But I can tell you the first 3 to 5 days after surgery, I felt horrible. And it wasn't like from the delivery, even although the delivery ended up being somewhat traumatic, because my body felt fine.
Yeah.
I just felt like I was in a haze and a fog, and it was a much tougher recovery than it was with my first home birth, where I didn't have any medical intervention.
Yeah.
Which is understandable, but also, like, I think a lot of that can be attributed to the drugs versus what actually happened. That being said, I am very grateful that they sewed it up while I was under general anesthesia, because I can't imagine being awake for that.
Yeah, I mean, so retrospect, it's like this shouldn't scare or deter anybody from having a good birth plan and doing a home birth if that is your prerogative.
Right.
What I would tell people is you do need to have a detailed emergency plan. And then another just like classic saying is, if you see something, you need to say something.
Yeah.
Like, I needed to advocate for Cam as much as I did or more, because after she had gone upstairs and seen and was bleeding during the shower and come back down, her mom went upstairs and saw all the blood.
Yeah, when we were already on route to the hospital.
Right, and at that stage, Cam's mom was like, hey, if I had seen that, I would have said we need to go to the hospital, because it just wasn't right. And so it's just like, if you don't feel right, if you see something, if it doesn't seem right, you need to have an emergency backup plan. You need to be able to do that. Because that would have saved us a ton of stress, is have the address to the hospital somewhere handy in your phone, know where you're going, know how you're going to get there,
and
well ahead of time.
The other thing I think that we did wrong was, since this was my second home birth, and I've been really healthy, and I'm a really low risk individual when it comes to labor and delivery. You know, we didn't know about the vascularity.
No.
Not counting that, really low risk individual. We just picked someone, and we're like, well, you know, we kind of know what we're doing. We just want somebody there as an in case. I would recommend shopping around and finding somebody who you're like, if I'm going to be on the brink of death, this is the person I want there.
Yeah.
As opposed to, this person's good enough. Hi, buddy. Which is what I did with my first delivery, and she was absolutely incredible. If you live in the San Diego area, Carly Nuttall, I would almost drive out there to give birth with her. Like, she's absolutely incredible, and if this situation had happened with her, I would have completely trusted her judgment 100%, and she was just brilliant the entire time with my first delivery. So even if you're a low risk case, even if you feel really comfortable, go the extra mile and pick somebody who you would want to be there in the worst case scenario.
Yeah, and then again, just have a plan. Any plan is better than no plan, because it went from totally normal day to near-death experience, and it felt like it took about 5 seconds to get there, because pregnancy and delivery is such a crazy thing that, unfortunately, the energy and attention is mostly on the baby, whereas Cam was in real trouble for a long time, and we didn't discover it until it was almost too late.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of little places where we had, you know, God looking out for us. And so one of those is that at 2 hours postpartum, with home births, is the maternal check, and I passed out at 90 minutes. And there's a couple places where that could have gone differently. Like, I have a chair that I was sitting on when I was nursing Knox the first time before I took a shower, and it would have been really easy for me to have gotten comfortable and been like, hey, I'm just going to take a nap right here, and I would have had towels covering me, and if I hadn't been checked for another 30 minutes, we don't know what would have happened. Yeah. So we got lucky in a sense that I went to take a shower, and that set off alarm bells for Greg. We kind of got lucky that I passed out, because if I had just closed my eyes and rested, me passing out, nobody would have noticed, because it wouldn't have been time to check me yet. We got lucky with the fact that I probably had above normal blood volume, which is lucky because I wasn't training but probably all those years of training helped contribute to that.
Yeah.
You're lucky that my mom was there, and then just the support we've had from our family and friends has been overwhelming. Like what Laura did for us, what Trisha did for us, what my brother and my mom and Raji and Raji's mom and your dad and your sisters.
Yeah.
Just
and your brother.
And my brother.
Yeah. I mean, our house was cleaned. Our furniture was put together.
Yeah, we came back from the hospital, and Laura had been there on the delivery day because I had purchased a bed from her, a bed frame, and she claimed she didn't set it up. Trisha claimed she didn't set it up, but somebody set it up. And we came home to our bed all set up and bed made. And there was no blood anywhere,
which was nice.
Which I think is really good because I think Greg has a little bit of PTSD from that.
A lot actually.
Baby was healthy. He is healthy. He's a great kid. You know, sleeps as well as newborn sleep. So we're still a little tired. But there's so many places that this could have gone so much worse, and we kind of got unlucky with just how I tore and the way that I'm put together. But all in all, I'm still really glad I had a home birth.
Yeah.
Because the outcomes for him were still so great. Like, he got to have an unmedicated delivery.
And they didn't whisk him away from us right away.
Yeah, they whisked me away. But
yeah, we had to whisk her away, but
ironically.
So we were sort of ironically, as she said, without our baby for 6 hours.
Yeah.
But it is still nice, like the whole.
But he got to be with family.
Yeah, and the whole labor and delivery process, being in a very familiar and comfortable environment, I feel like is important.
Yeah, that was really cool, getting to labor in the tub. Basically for the entire last third.
Yeah, I was in there. And here's kind of a disgusting thing, actually. A little tidbit, just to take home with you. So I was in the tub with Cam during the delivery. So all of the
goo, lots of goo.
You're in there with it, and then we have a baby. So I was wearing like these like workout like pants. They're not like full on cotton sweatpants, but they're Lulu sweatpants.
Right.
And they're saturated. But for like the first hour after the birth, I'm just wearing those. Right. I'm still just wearing the pants. And then Cam took a shower, but I didn't shower with her because I honestly was on edge, ready to run downstairs and get help from somebody. So I kept all my clothes on. And then I did change clothes before we went to the hospital. Still have not showered at this point. Still have not showered.
To be clear, at the point that he's telling you about in the story, not 2 weeks postpartum.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah, so still haven't showered. And so I wore around with me all the way until we got home from the hospital everything that had been in that tub. So there you go. Yeah. That's a little story for you.
But yeah, so we're now 2 weeks postpartum, having a really pretty incredible recovery.
Yeah.
Sutures at this point are supposed to be mostly dissolved.
Uh-huh.
I feel pretty normal. My diastasis is actually smaller than it was before I got pregnant, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And slowly starting to move again and work out again, and realizing how incredibly out of shape I am. So, if you were interested, thanks for watching.
And we're going to detail more of the recovery and all the process that's going to go forward and like where we're going to go from here. But
yeah, and I just did a DEXA scan yesterday, so I'll have a post about that. Because I've been doing those since I was 25. So
yeah.
I got a lot of data on that.
Yeah.
And happy New Year.
New Year.
We'll see you guys in 2020.
Yeah.
Woo!